there was another experiment, back to rodents, called the rat park experiment. And it was an experiment that was designed to correct a flaw in the original experiment that was done in how we understand addiction. And the original experiment was a rat that was put in a cage, and it had regular water and it had heroin water. And it drank the heroin water till it died.
Of course.
And of course, we assume that heroin's highly addictive, and creatures will choose heroin, over health, no matter what, to the point of death. Mm-hmm. And somebody pointed out a flaw in that experiment, in that rats are social creatures, and it was a lone rat in a cage. So they redid the experiment. So they invented Rat Park, where all the rats had all the food that they needed, all the toys that they needed, all the other rats that they could have sex with and play with, and of course, all the water that they needed. And then there was the bottle of heroin water, just like in the other experiment. Only in this experiment, the rats every once in a while would take a sip of the heroin water, but otherwise they avoided it and just drank the regular water, and none of the rats died.
Why do you think that is?
Social connection. So rats are social creatures, just like humans. And so the idea being that pleasure and connection are essential nutrients for the existence of social creatures. And if you remove that, then creatures will find it in any way that they can, even if it's unhealthy ways. And so when we look at people that are staring at their phones or using AI inappropriately, or they have their vices, whether it's full-blown drug addiction or doom scrolling, it's all self-soothing. It's all to avoid pain and disconnection, and try to find whatever little bits of pleasure that you can.
So why do you think people are avoiding social connection? I have a hypothesis. I'm sure you do as well, but is it because people don't feel like enough? So they don't feel worthy of social connection. They don't feel like they should say hi to that person at the grocery store or invite them, their group of friends out. Like, why do you think, because I see this everywhere. I've seen it in family members. I've seen it in friends. People are just rejecting social interaction. Why do you think we are? I
think it has to do with safety.
Yeah.
I don't think we trust that we'll have safe interactions if we have interactions. And so we go into self-preservation mode and trauma responses, and we withdraw. But if we were to trust that our interactions would be safe, that we would be loved no matter what, then why wouldn't we have interactions?
Where do you think that came from?
The lack of safety?
Like the perceived lack of safety. We don't interact because we're scared.
Usually from experience.
Yeah.
Because of times when people did let us down, or we had to choose authenticity over attachment, or attachment over authenticity. Times where we opened up and people hurt us. Dr. Trager, the person that invented the Trager Approach, he said, when the nervous system experiences something, it never forgets it. And that goes for good and for bad things. And so all of our negative social experiences, those are all in our nervous system. But I believe, and the reason that I do the work that I do, is that if we can paint positive connection-based experiences into the nervous system, that it can expand the capacity for that and build the possibility of trust and finding trust and connection in other human relationships. But you can't build that without first having the experience of that. And there's a lot of people with complex PTSD that maybe never had the experience of trust and safety in their nervous system. It wasn't part of their environment growing up. And if you don't have that in your nervous system, you can't find that in relationships. You're going to continue to seek out relationships that feel like home. But if you can have even one small experience, like having a session with me, and you can feel the feeling of trust, of connection, of safety, then you can have the capacity to recognize that in the world. Oh, I met this person and it feels like I did on the table. In the same way that you now can recognize your own sense of regulation and dysregulation. It was because you had the feeling of regulation, of softness and ease. And now you can slide along that spectrum instead of the more limited spectrum, maybe that you were operating in before you had that experience.
I think another way modern society is working against us in this way is technology's presence in adolescent development.
Yeah.
Like what would happen if someone, like you said, has never experienced this? So maybe their parents weren't toxic or abusive or angry, but maybe all they had was an iPad or video games from the age of 2 until like they moved out, went to college, and they've never experienced that, love, reassurance from their parents when the baby's crying and the mom's supposed to pick it up or the dad picks it up and coddles it and it feeds it and, tucks it in. Like there's hormones being released. There's oxytocin being released. We get used to the safety of that.
Yeah.
But if now we're just handing them an iPad and a pacifier, what's the end result of that?
That's trauma.
Yeah.
That's a nervous system that grows up in trauma, because if we don't have somebody in our lives that we can share our pain and our struggles and our joys with, then we end up in a dysregulated state. If we don't have that reinforcement of connection, we don't have the feeling of safety.